Let's discuss AEW Dynamite from March the 26th. I gotta tell you the truth, bros. There's some things that AEW is doing better than WWE. A lot of it is the dueling promo and the extensive character work. The stuff with the Hurt Business and MJF was interesting. The Swerve Moxley scene was interesting. And they were more interesting than some of the stuff WWE has been doing, even at highest level, even with the biggest performers. They're not letting them go in there and go at each other and take chunks out of one another verbally. It's been a breath of fresh air how you have the main event of WrestleMania and these guys won't even talk to each other. You have a triple threat match between three of the biggest stars in the company and they just brawl boringly. And I've been saying this for a while now. It sucks that AEW is doing some things that WWE is really good at, usually. And right now is doing it better than them. That being said, though, this show was abysmal. All right, this show sucked. This show sucked because these matches were so goddamn long and so goddamn uninteresting and featured with people nobody cares about and nobody wanted to see. And the crowd did not care at all. We're going to go through it though. First, news and notes. We got to start with news and notes always, if there is something worth talking about. So there's three things here. One, Saraya, aka Paige, she is out of AEW. Apparently her contract has expired. Either that or she came to terms with being released from AEW. She won the world title. I believe it was the first All In, which I believe was 2022. Or was it 2021? It's one or the other. 2022, because I think 2023 was the second All In. She won the world title there. She was never really all that good. There's really no memorable moments outside of her winning that title. She was supposed to be used to get Toni Storm over. I guess she successfully did that. But she can't wrestle because she can't really work and she can't really take any bumps. She has a really bad neck. It was a bad idea to bring her into AEW in the first place, especially with the style that they were working and these girls were. And people think like, and I saw this, tweets like, oh, the style of women's wrestling in AEW has increased over the last 2 years. Of course you don't need Saraya anymore. It's like, what are you talking about? Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker was bleeding buckets back then. They were cutting each other up back then. Like, she was never a useful piece of the wrestling company. She cannot fucking work. She can't. It's literally that simple. They're asking her about coming back to WWE. It's like, to do what? Unless she's going to be the general manager of NXT or Evolve or something like that, there's no role for her in WWE. Triple H may throw her a bone because she is an NXT talent, a black and gold star, one of the first big stars that he was able to push and get Vince McMahon to believe in. But that neck is made out of sawdust, my guy. It's over. She will never get medically cleared, and they're not going to hire her bum-ass brother. I can tell you that right now. Zack Knight, I'm telling you, she ain't got the chops to get Zack Knight a job. I would be surprised. I will tell you this. If Zack Knight gets a job in WWE, you'll know that Triple H and Shawn Michaels have lost their goddamn minds. It's not that he's a bad wrestler or anything like that, but the fact... because I don't know. I haven't really watched them. But I can tell you this. If they kowtow to Paige and say, we need you so badly we'll sign your brother, well, they're just licking the bottom of the bowl at this point. And there's really no need for it. You don't need this girl. Unless you're going to use her to get somebody else over. I mean, as a mouthpiece. And you can. There's plenty of girls who probably could benefit from having Paige in their corner. At the same time, though, she can't work. And she's not really even all that good at talking. And the last time she tried to manage some guys, I think it was Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, wasn't it? I think she tried to manage them, and I don't remember that working either. So, Saraya is out. No, AEW fans, you lost nothing. Everybody knows that. That's why there's no discomfort or anger about the whole thing. The next piece is that Mina Shirakawa is leaving Stardom and will be joining AEW in May full time, which I'm not sure is bad. I mean, she got over in AEW. I don't think it's going to mean much, if anything. To my great surprise, Mina Shirakawa was in her late 30s. She was 38 last time I checked, which is insane because she looks great. I'm not saying that, just because she's 38, she has to look like an old beat up horse. It's just that sometimes 38-year-olds look like old beat up horses, But she looks great at almost 40. I don't know where her upside is. Again, she's almost 40. But AEW is going to get rid of one bird and bring in another one. There's also some conversation about Mariah May's contract being up. And people are posting how she's a WWE fan. She's a super fan and all this sort of stuff. And her hanging out at WrestleMania 38, and all this. But ultimately, she's a wrestler now. I think she was in some kind of fan position back then. She worked in like media or social media or something. But she's a wrestler. And this is a business. She would make more money in AEW right now. Not in competing with the girls from NXT. And plus, how many more blonde Barbies do we need? I mean, we got Charlotte steamrolling Tiffany Stratton right now. Do we really need her to go out there and make a fool out of Mariah May too? No, we don't. She's doing a great job in AEW. She should stay there. If she was to ask me my opinion, I would say stay where they're watering the grass. I know that the big run is over. She'll probably never have another run like she had with Tony. But stay where you're valued and where you have the opportunity that if somebody goes down, you could just slide right on in. I would stay in AEW if I was her. It's in her best interest. Unless she really, really, really super fan of Triple H, which, some people are memeing that she is because when she was younger, she was. She could still be a fan of Triple H and not go work for WWE. These two things are not the same thing. All right, let's get into this show. Kenny Omega wasted everybody's time wrestling Blake Christian. Blake Christian is literally the 10th person who wrestles like Kenny Omega that has been signed to AEW. He points, he gyrates, he runs, he doesn't sell anything, he looks like shit. Everything about this is trash. I've seen Blake Christian on the Indies. I've seen him in GCW. I've seen him in NXT. I've seen him in TNA. I've seen this guy everywhere. He has failed to impress every time. He is literally bland. I know he's mixed, I believe. But bland white boy number 1500. There's no real functional difference between Blake Christian and Nick Wayne. No real difference. Okay, so Kenny Omega is on the microphone. He gets interrupted by Speedball Mike Bailey, whose ankles just look like they're about to vanish. He's a painfully small man. Smaller than I thought, because he's even smaller than Kenny Omega. I mean, he's tiny in comparison to Kenny Omega. And he starts going on about how Kenny Omega is his inspiration and how he admires him. And these two men, both of whom with ambiguous sexuality, are standing in the ring, no bass in either voice, just Canadian and weird. Just very queer stuff we got going on here. And I mean like the original definition of queer, not, LGBTQ queer, even though it's kind of that too. And he talked about how he's not going to hold anything back. He's going to kick Kenny Omega in the head. And I'm still like, I don't believe you. You're a small man. And Omega looking at him, breathing hard because he's just wasted time wrestling Blake Christian. There's some weird jokes in here where it's Omega just being weird. Then Ricochet says he's at his own wedding. He's dressed like a Muslim for some reason. And he said he's at his own wedding. Why would you stop your own wedding or even be considered worrying about this goddamn thing you're at your wedding? And cuts his promo on video. Kenny Omega says, Ricochet, before you leave. Oh, wait, he's gone. And then everybody laughs because it was a video. And I'm almost certain Kenny Omega should have known that and probably did. But he starts talking about congratulating Ricochet on his marriage, and says that he's not in this business to make friends. He's got a cat. He doesn't need any more friends. This is about his legacy. This is about his championship. And then he does his gimmick and tells everybody goodbye. This man is 38, 39 years old, and he says that he's got a cat. And I wish we can get rid of these theater kids, man. AEW comes across like the really bad episode of Glee, like a really dark episode of Glee. It's just a bunch of ambiguously weird dudes running around. Dog dads and cat dads and people who don't look like they ever have sex. It's very weird because I know the Speedball Mike Bailey is married to a woman, but he also wants to be referred to as they. It's like, get the fuck out of here, man. Who are these people and where do they come from? Outside of Canada. Like, do these people grow on trees or something? Like, these people are weird. How do you have so many collections of weirdos at one time? Getting one weirdo is hard enough. How the fuck do you got 8 on the roster? Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's move on. Chris Jericho, he chides Bill and Keith, demands that they prove themselves to him. Then he challenges Bandito to a mask versus title match at Dynasty. How about that TV deal for Ring of Honor? Isn't that the whole reason Jericho was the champion? Because there's going to be a TV deal for Ring of Honor. How did that fall through? How did WWE get Evolve a TV deal? And Tony Khan can't get Ring of Honor a TV deal when Jericho was the champion. Strange stuff going on here. Big Bill and Brian Keith would go on to challenge the Hurt Business for a tag team championship match. MVP made very homoerotic comments towards Brian Keith, referring to him as Big Bill's bitch and his girlfriend, and then told them that if they won a match, they would give them the title shot. I'm glad Brian Keith got rid of those stupid ass mutton chops he had on the side of his face, but he's also a very small man, painfully small man. I'm not interested in seeing these guys wrestle the Hurt Business at all. I don't care. There's nothing that these guys can do to make me interested in that. Jericho, though, boy, he's holding on with his fingernails. He will not go away. He will never go away. All right, so MGP and MJF, they have their segment in the ring. MJF says that after the Adam Cole debacle, he'll never do friends again. But he knows that MVP is not about making friends. He's about doing business. And he would like to be in the business of hurting people. So MVP and MJF are going to make a deal. But Bobby Lashley shows up with Shelton Benjamin, and they menace MVP. Lashley looks to Shelton. Shelton shakes his head no. Lashley retrieves the business card from MJF and rips it up. MJF is frustrated by this. MVP's like, whoa, he's cool. Then he tells MJF he's going to smooth this thing out, and MJF leaves. Later on, they have a team meeting about this. And Shelton Benjamin and Lashley, well, they're not big fans of MJF. MJF is a scumbag. And he's a very dastardly human being. They might be bad guys, but shit, MJF, man, you're just crossing the line. MVP said it's the negative qualities of MJF that he actually likes. That's why he wants him on the team. And they've been talking about growing the team for a while now. They need a 4th member. But he says, hey, if you guys don't like him, we can table it and make another discussion about it some other time. So they're not teasing any dissension between the Hurt Business. They're basically just saying, Lashley and Shelton Benjamin might be bad guys, but they're not that bad. They don't want to partner up with MJF. I mean, they've been watching this show. They know that MJF turns on everybody. He absolutely betrays every single team he's a part of. But I like this because it's interesting. It shows that, and this is always an important piece for me, you're in a faction, that guys can disagree. Everybody doesn't have to be on one accord and it be tense, where everybody has to argue. In this situation, Lashley clearly didn't agree with what MVP was doing. MVP's got to sell MJF to Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin is already a flat no, while Lashley is kind of like, I don't like it. Let's, talk about it a little bit more. He don't like how MVP went about it by, offering him the spot while they were not around and all that kind of stuff. So there's some interesting bits there because Lashley's a strong enough character and MVP's a strong enough character and Shelton Benjamin's a strong enough character where they can do stuff like this and not belittle themselves or even get to the point where they need to menace or threaten or shout at each other. If they could talk these things out, it shows that they could disagree and without being disagreeable. And it also keeps the story running. So now we got to figure out how MJF is going to get over the hurdle of Lashley and Shelton Benjamin not liking him. So that it opens up the doors for there to be more story to tell. Later on, we got Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm. They cut a promo where Toni Storm comes up with the name Thunder Tits for the team, where Thunder Rosa wanted to be the world champion again, but nobody takes that seriously, and wanted to name the team Thunder Storm, which, makes more sense. In the main event, which was, I don't know why this was the main event, Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford defeated Toni Storm and Thunder Rosa. Who cares? I mean, really, this was brutal. This was a brutal match. They did a vignette for Megan Bayne on Collision that I actually think they should have showed on this show. I get it. They want you to watch Collision, but sometimes you can show things more than once. But there was a vignette where I actually got to hear Megan Bayne's voice. It's the first time. It's a feminine voice. I was surprised. But it basically tells you a lot more about her character. That, she is, chosen by the gods, and, these wrestlers, they worship champions, and she's more than a champion. She's basically a divine being, or, this kind of thing. I thought that was pretty cool. Tells you a lot about her character and why her push is so, fast. She gets the pin here on Toni Storm. She pins Toni Storm with her F5 finisher. I still think it's too fast, that they're pushing Megan Bayne too fast. If she loses this, what's next? That's going to be the issue. And then if she wins, then she's put into essentially a Yokozuna kind of position where she only really got the belt so that Toni Storm could one day overcome her, which is fine as a story. And Toni wouldn't be hurt by losing the title. But you should want there to be a little bit more meat on the bone when it comes to Megan Bayne. But I guess they're going to try to fast track and make new stars quickly, which is, what you should be doing. I'm not going to complain about that. What I am going to complain about is Kyle Fletcher versus Brody King boring me to death. This match was boring as hell. Just endless clotheslines and bumps to no end. I know that the AEW fans, you like this sort of stuff, but for me, there has to be a reason for this match to be this goddamn long. I hate to break it to you. This match was too goddamn long. I did not care. And I knew Kyle Fletcher was going to win, so whatever. Then they had Mark Davis come out there. Mark Davis, who looks like he sleeps in the alley. He comes out there, then Powerhouse Hobbs comes to help him, and that would be Brody King. And then Powerhouse Hobbs defeated Mark Davis. I didn't watch that either, because that also sucks. It's just nothing interesting here. What is this shit? Then Nick Wayne cuts a promo. I didn't want to hear his voice with his chicken neck. He reminds me of that chicken kid from is he from Looney Tunes? I think he was a kid hanging out with Foghorn Leghorn. He had the big Adam's apple with the glasses and everything. That's what Nick Wayne reminds me of. He was talking some trash about Christian and saying that he's going to tell Christian what he thinks when he sees him face to face. And attacking Edge is what happens when you execute a plan. Who cares? Moving on, Hangman Page and Swerve got into an argument. Swerve got into his face for daring to suggest he's going to interrupt that championship match. And he says that, you know me, you don't play with me. You don't play with me, boy. And Hangman says, he said it and he meant it. Swerve will never be world champion while he's around. So they're teasing that, and then we get to the actual good segment. At least it was probably a 70% good segment. Moxley and Swerve. They're in the ring, and Swerve is questioning what even happened to Moxley, asking him why is he hiding behind the Death Riders, saying that he doesn't get the belt out of that briefcase because he can't even see himself with it. He's too ashamed of carrying it. He botched this line, by the way. I mean, he really got it all torn up in his head, and people was like, what? It's like, I had to write it down, not the way that he said it, because I never would have gotten it right. I wrote it down the way he meant to say it, which is that Moxley can't even see himself carrying that championship. And then Swerve claimed to be what Moxley thinks he is. Claudio then looms over Prince Nana. I mean, just like a dark cloud just standing right over him. My God. Moxley then says that at Dynasty, it's not Moxley versus Swerve, it's Swerve versus Swerve, and said that who are you really? That Moxley knows where Swerve could be and wants to give him the chance to be everything that he can be. He says, but how far are you willing to go? Not just one night, but every night. Then he said that Swerve has not suffered enough. He said that business that he loves has been taken over by billionaires and kids on Instagram. He's not giving any handouts, but he's willing to give Swerve the chance to see how far he's willing to go, because he's willing to go all the way. Swerve is then about to get attacked by Marina Shafir with a crowbar, but here comes Willow with a pipe. I'm like, oh my God. Swerve then claims that he's smarter than Moxley and that he is the most dangerous man in AEW, while Jon Moxley is just playing Jon Moxley on TV. I did like this segment. I thought it was a bit long. I could have done without, Willow and Marina Shafir tumbling and doing their stuff. But hey, you have the main event guys in the ring, setting the stage for what the problem is, what's the conflict. Sure, Swerve won a match to get this title shot, so there's not any deeply rooted issue. But what Moxley is setting up here is basically the same thing he's been setting up the entire time. He's creating himself as being the unscalable mountain that you must climb. You have to prove yourself to him in order to get the world title, and he's saying, well, Swerve has the potential to be that guy, because Swerve, much like all the other indie guys, he has, the spark. He has the potential. But is Swerve willing to go as far as he's willing to go? And we see how far Moxley is willing to go. We saw Moxley get impaled last week on nails. So we know we've seen Swerve get stabbed in the face with a needle. So that informs the story in this situation here. We know that they're both willing to go pretty damn far in order to win a match. We know that they both are pretty goddamn tough, that they can take a licking and can keep on going. So I like this. I thought this was mostly solid. This is the kind of stuff you should be doing for the main event of WrestleMania, pretty much, right? You would think, right? Now, I could do without all of Moxley's pop psychology, or Swerve mind reading, but I understood the story. Moxley is willing to see if Swerve is going to get out of his own way. And he didn't say those words, but that's what he meant by it's Swerve versus Swerve. Basically, are you going to get out of your own way? Do what needs to be done to be the world champion. And then also you have the looming threat of Hangman Page over this thing. Is he going to attack Swerve before the match? Is he going to interrupt the match and cause a disqualification, or what's going to happen? So I like this. I think this is pretty solid. Samoa Joe and Hook ended up attacking Max Caster for no good reason. Jay White volunteered to join the Owen. He had an open challenge that's going to be answered by Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight's pretty cool. I wonder why he hasn't gotten an AEW contract. You also have Rated FTR. They had a sit-down segment with Tony Schiavone, and I was okay with this until certain string of words were said. And I was like, God damn it, I just talked about this. So Dax and Edge are they're at crosswords here. Edge is kind of frustrated because Dax has an attitude. Dax is like, hey, we put our careers on hold to help you, but now it's time for us to get back on track. And Edge is like, hey, don't make it sound like I forced you guys. And he's like, no, we're not saying that, but I'm saying we got to get back on track. So then Cash he's trying to be the voice of reason. He's like, Edge is my best friend. When I was sleeping in my car, I was like, you motherfucker. Did you not listening to me? Follow the product. I'm tired of hearing about indie wrestlers sleeping in the goddamn cars. All right? Stop this. Why is everybody got a story about my dream? My dream, I was sleeping in my car. I was dreaming as a boy and I was sleeping in my fucking car. Ah, damn. These fucking dorks. Stop telling everybody you're poor. Stop telling everybody you were poor. Oh, mercy, Jesus. Anyway, Dax Harwood apologized. Says, okay, we need to refocus to being the tag team champions. Cash said, no. I would think that this thing has more juice. We should be the trios champions. And then Edge was like, well, if you guys want to do it, let's do it. And Dax was like, okay. They challenged the Death Riders to a trios championship match. They said, top guys out. And then Edge just had to get the last word and was like, no. Rated FTR. Out. And then Dax was like, oh, you mother. What'd I say? Like, what do you have against top guys out? Now, I see this. Interesting thing that they're doing here. Dax doesn't want anything to do with Edge anymore. He's kind of done with this. He wants to go back to being FTR, them two as a tag team. And Edge is trying to hold, Cash is trying to hold everybody together. And Edge is rubbing Dax the wrong way, kind of taking their careers off track. And, that's an interesting story. They're going to end up turning on him eventually, or at least Dax will. But they're taking the scenic route in doing so. There's a time in AEW where they would have rushed this thing, where they really would have Dax turn on them almost immediately. But now they're just planting the seeds to let you think, okay, Dax could quite possibly turn on him in the future, but he's not going to do it right now, which means there's going to be a crucial point in the future that you have to pay attention to see Dax turn on Edge. And then you're going to put Cash in the middle of it and to see which side he goes with, which is obviously going to be Dax, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see where they go with this. Even though I'm not interested at all in seeing them wrestle the Death Riders. Wheeler Yuta talked. I literally fell asleep as soon as I saw his face. And oddly enough, when Pac started talking, I was like, oh. And they accepted the challenge. No, they turned the challenge around. We challenge you. You don't challenge us. We challenge you. Who cares, brother? Who gives a shit? Next, Top Flight defeated some jabronis. Leo Rush and Action Andretti was jaw-jacking from the crowd. Who cares about any of that? None of that was worth talking about. None of that was worth discussing. So that's pretty much the entire show. There was a Will Ospreay vignette, but who the hell cares about him? So the only other piece of business we got here is that there's no Mercedes Moné tonight. At least I didn't see her. Maybe I went to the bathroom, fell asleep or something, and she came on and disappeared. But we thought that they were going to build her match for Dynasty, and nothing happened. It seemed like they were going to go with Mercedes versus Athena, and they decided to give her a week off, I guess. I mean, working one day a week is too much, apparently. But who was working here? Von Wagner. AEW used Von Wagner as an extra. He was a security guard. That's very nice. This is the first time we've seen Von Wagner since he left NXT. That's amazing. Pretty damn amazing, I must say. Good on him for finding a new job. Also, I forgot to talk about this in the news and notes segment, so we're going to talk about it here. There's a report from Cultaholic, which I know is they're quoting the Mat Men podcast and Fightful by saying that Warner Brothers Discovery does not care about the online discourse about AEW ratings. I'm not going to bore anybody by talking about this because once I looked at the wording of it, I was like, yeah, they don't care. Why should they care about what anybody online says about AEW's ratings? They should be concerned about what AEW's ratings. They don't care about the discourse around it. I know I wouldn't care. Most of the people talking don't know what they're talking about. They only know what Nielsen or whatever puts out there. They don't know, what the ad rates are and all that kind of. There's a lot of nuts and bolts to TV ratings that people are not privy to. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the uneducated opinions of the masses. That being said, though, it was all put out there as if, Warner Bros. Discovery is really good with the ratings for Dynamite, which is the part of that I have a problem with. This is what Andrew Zarian said. He says, I'll tell you, though, I've been hearing some very positive stuff from Warner Bros. Discovery. I brought up the ratings in the internet chatter, and they don't care. It doesn't even resonate. The messaging on the internet is not even resonating with these people, and they're in key positions. They're not watching this shit. Do you think some white shirt, red tie guy is listening to JD from New York? Or Magnificent MongoSlade or Wrestling Soup? Ain't no fucking body from Warner Brothers Discovery listening to us yell about AEW's ratings. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That guy's a professional. He has way more information about this stuff than we do. He don't give a fuck what we're talking about. But if you think that they're happy with those ratings, well then why didn't they give them another show? They should have gave them another show. They're putting on Collision at midnight now in order to artificially bump those numbers up with basketball games. It's bullshit, and you all know it. Warner Bros. Discovery. They canceled Battle of the Belts. They're making less product now than they were 2 years ago. Warner Bros. Discovery is super happy. They're so happy they say we want less of it. We'll pay you more to make less. All right? That's not a sign of happiness. But it's a sign at least that they're okay with you. They're at least willing to put up with you for a while. So that seems to be it. I know Swerve Strickland was on Vlad TV. He did some slandering of WWE. That stuff is not worth talking about because he's already talked about it. A lot of that stuff is stuff that he's talked about before. So it's not that big a deal. If him and Top Dollar end up getting into it, which I think they're trying to avoid each other. But if they end up getting into it, I'll probably do a video on that. But for right now, this is nothing different than what Swerve has said before about his time in WWE. How he never felt appreciated there, and he was never a Triple H guy and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's the same shit over and over again with Swerve. He's never going to get over the fact that they didn't want him. He's just never going to get over that. But also, it is confirmed that Will Washington is his cousin. So, it explains why he's such a fucking stooge. Again, I like Swerve. But when your cousin is in the office, stooging on your behalf, boot blacking on your behalf. I shouldn't say stuff like that. I'm sorry. I take that back. When your cousin's in the office and you get a nice little job out of it, you get a nice little world title out of it, and now you feel like you can go take shots at Booker T, I don't really appreciate that. Because Booker T didn't have a cousin in the office. You dig? He didn't go on TV and play the race card. He didn't run around on podcasts playing the race card. Swerve's talent could have gotten him there. But he chose to take shortcuts. Cousin in the office, playing the race card and podcasts and a bunch of other shit. I mean, he got there anyway. But I think he would have gotten there and it probably would have been more respectful. A lot of the woke types still don't like him because of the rap song that he made. But as long as he's taking shots at, Booker T and WWE, they're willing to put up with it. That kind of makes it really sad. Also, I guess while I got you guys here, I might as well talk about this this legal case that they got going on with Ryan Namath. Apparently, they filed a brief or a motion to keep everything AEW contracts under wraps because they fear that the information getting out will cause irreparable damage to AEW, and even heavily redacting the documents they claim will cause irreparable damage to AEW. What the hell is in those contracts that it needed to be redacted? Like, WWE contracts have been floating around out there for a while. I think even Stephanie McMahon's contract was floating around out there. Like, what kind of contract is going on with AEW where not only do they need a judge to seal it, but you have to sign an NDA and never talk about it when you leave? What the hell's going on? I've never seen this level of secrecy. Like, KFC doesn't have this level of secrecy for their 11 herbs and spices. I've seen places that have, the world's most famous barbecue sauce, and they still don't have an NDA and need to be redacted and all this kind of, like, what is going on here? Is this Omerta? Like, Joe Valachi gave away more valuable information than was likely in these goddamn contracts. In any event, this is what the document says. I just went and looked it up, so I'm going to pull it up here. Any interest in obtaining access to the terms of the agreements is outweighed by AEW's legitimate interests in maintaining the confidentiality of the contractual relationship at issue. Moreover, maintaining confidentiality of the terms between AEW and its wrestlers and former wrestlers, such as Respondent, is essential for AEW to remain competitive in the wrestling industry, and allowing the agreements to be filed on the public docket will result in substantial and irreparable harm to AEW's and Petitioner Khan's business, which harm cannot be reduced or eliminated through any other reasonable means. And then later on it says, redaction or any other means will not cure the harm that petitioners stand to suffer if the terms of AEW's confidential business relationships become accessible by its competitors. What is in this document that needs to be protected? Are there murders or child molestation? It's like a pedophile ring? What's happening? Why can't we know what's in these contracts? It should be a standard wrestling contract. I've read WWE contracts. I've read TNA contracts. I've read Ring of Honor contracts. None of them took me by surprise. They were more or less very similar in a sense. Of course, WWE's contracts are a little bit more stringent. But I can't imagine looking at an AEW contract and being dumbfounded by some of the stuff that's in it. I can't imagine it. I just can't. I do not think it will be that much different from a WWE or Ring of Honor contract. So something tells me that there must be some kind of poison pill in there, or some officers, or something that got to do with management, ownership, or something like that they do not want the fans to know. And that makes me want to know even more. Because for starters, I'm thinking Ryan Namath just wants money. Give him some money to go away. If you're going to fight this thing, it's dumb, it's pointless. Give him $100,000 and tell him to fuck off. That's it. $150,000 is nothing to you. You're going to lose that next week on Dynamite anyway. You lose that every time Harley Graham is out there on television. You lose $150,000. Just throw that shit to Ryan Namath and tell him to go kill. I was about to use some very strong language. Tell him to go kiss his big brother's ass. And get out of your face. This is not worth fighting, let alone embarrassing yourself, because eventually there will be a legitimate lawsuit filed, And you're not going to be able to redact this kind of shit or play this whole, we got confidential secrets that, it's going to harm our business. Because then judges won't care. But as of right now, that's where we sit. Apparently, Ryan Nemeth has been served with some kind of, probably a countersuit, or something else that is about moving, maybe change of venue. Because I do know that they want to take this from a public court and take it to arbitration. So maybe they'll do that. But overall, we're in an interesting situation here with these guys, and it doesn't make sense for it to occur in this way. All right, as I said before, Dynamite was very bad. The matches were boring. They feature a very, very, very boring cast of professional wrestlers. I do like the talking segments. I do like some of the character interactions. I think those things have been much better. They've been doing interesting things. Even if it's not great stuff, it's interesting. It's far more interesting. I'm very interested in seeing where MJF and the Hurt Business goes. Is MJF going to, jump through the hoops necessary to impress these guys, or is he going to double cross them, change his mind? I'm very interested in seeing Moxley and Swerve. I don't want to see the match. The match is probably the least interesting part of this. But what they are foreshadowing is that these two guys are going to try to murder each other in a regular pinfall or submission match, while the referee just stands there and gawks. But that's interesting, because we know that these guys have the capacity to do that. So even though I don't really care about the match, at least I know that Moxley is willing to take it to the edge, and Swerve's meaning to meet him there on that edge. Meanwhile, the Kenny Omega stuff is uninteresting. All these racially ambiguous, sexuality ambiguous people doing a bunch of nothing in the mid-card of this show is pointless. Jericho about to lose his championship, so maybe he's going to go on hiatus. I can't imagine Jericho doing anything of note after he loses that Ring of Honor belt again. I just can't imagine him doing anything that matters at that point. So, but let me know what you guys think of AEW Dynamite. Feel free to hit the like button. Hit the like button, especially if you got this far into the video. Be assured to hit the like button. Donate if you can. I really would appreciate it. Twos and fews. If everybody listening to this sent $1, I'd probably be feeling so much better about myself. And thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you folks later, man. Peace.